Welcome to the Underground, the Steel City Underground, the black and gold standard for Pittsburgh Steelers coverage. Now, here's your host, Joe Kuzma and Brian E. Roach.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Steel City Underground podcast. My name is Joe Kuzma, and joining me once again, my brother from another mother. I'll never tire of saying this. one Mr. Brian E. Roach with the bobblehead in his hand. What's up, sir? You don't have to salute me. That's not for me.
No, that's for the wonderful individuals who watch the show, listen to the show, comment on the show. All those wonderful people. That was my salute to them. Salute to you.
Hey, you know what? Cheers to you, provided you're a Steelers fan. Because if you're here otherwise, you know what? We welcome you too. You just have to understand, we're not an NFL show. We're not Good Morning Football. We're not, Speak for Yourself or any of these other the programs that are on NFL Live. This is a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, the black and gold standard for the Pittsburgh Steelers, as we like to say, for coverage, for whatever you want to say. Somebody said, I went to listen to this and I didn't hear anything. I want Steelers content, blah, 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 blah. Well, okay. You can always change the channel, my friend. That's the beauty. It's really the beauty of the internet and on demand. There was once upon a time, and yes, I'm old enough, like you, Brian, where you had to turn the knob. You didn't even have a remote control to the TV, and you had 3 channels. And if there wasn't squat on, you know what? You probably went outside and did something or read a book or something else. Like
You're mistaken. I always had a remote control. Always.
Oh, it was the kid.
My entire life. It was called Younger Brother. Go change the channel, punk.
Nah, the reason, I knew we were going to hit the proverbial hornet's nest talking about the Cleveland Browns. Were Zach and I not fair enough, like saying double-digit wins, 10-11, like on the ceiling? But we said, plus or minus 3 there. You could find some wins and losses in there, actually to a point where we said they could actually win, albeit a game or two more than where we had the Steelers on the range and sliding scale. And everybody in the comments section that's a Browns fan PO'd that we didn't say they're better than the Kansas City Chiefs, better than the Patriots dynasty, and not already handing them the preseason Lombardi trophy like everyone else wants to do. I'm sorry.
Let me
wait. Hold on one second. This is not the Dog Pound. This is the Steel City. And regardless, I thought we were being pretty fair about the whole thing. We didn't trash the Browns whatsoever, as so much as we kind of did with the Bengals, and it still wasn't good enough.
Let me put it this way: Are you Browns fans not fed up with getting the preseason Lombardi, which you've gotten 3-4 years in a row? Everybody's the Browns, and you didn't win. I don't want to say you stunk because you didn't necessarily stink, but you didn't win much of anything. So, you did manage to make the playoffs last year. You did beat us. I'm going to give you credit for it. I'm not going to give you that much credit for it, but I will give you credit for it. But you didn't get any farther. And, I'm sorry. Yeah, participation trophy. You played a good game against the Chiefs. You lost. So until you actually get past the first round of the playoffs, and get into that second game or get into a championship game or win a Super Bowl,
get to one,
get to one.
Well,
you can't be mad that we don't go, the Browns are the greatest thing since sliced bread.
Let's lower the standards even more. Maybe win an AFC North division championship, win the trophy once. Even the Bengals have done that. The Browns have not done that since the AFC North has existed. So
yeah.
Forgive us for not having a high standard. And the whole thing we're getting to with this on this show is that some of the people in the comments said we weren't being realistic. Look at the changes the Steelers had on with their team and this and that. Okay, so we're going to get to that. We've been talking about that before. More than likely, a Browns fan, it's probably one of these guys said we put Browns in the title so people would actually show or watch this or listen to this. And I'm like, well, we are talking about the Browns. What are you going to do? Not say it? You know what I mean? Not say their name in there? That's like I'm not scared of my take on this. I don't think their defense is going to be anywhere near as strong as what everyone else thinks. And at the same time, A lot of people aren't realizing some different things, including Steelers fans who are still like, well, and they only commented on the headline. I know they didn't listen to or watch the show. I see it in the comments, not just on YouTube, but we put it out there on social media. And the answer to the title question was whether or not the name of the show was, are the Cleveland Browns a threat to the Steelers' AFC North crown? The Steelers are the defending AFC North champions. I don't care what you want to say about that. They got to 11-0 with what you claim is a gimped-armed, noodle-armed, washed-up quarterback and the worst running game in the entire NFL. Okay? They got to 11-0 there. They won the division with that. What have they really lost from that team? We'll get to that because this is part of the talk about who needs to step up. There are some changes on the defense, but that defense was missing Bud Dupree for almost half the season. Devin Bush more than half the season. They lost Joe Hayden at times. They didn't have Steven Nelson, I think, for a game or two. You had COVID protocols where guys weren't out there. You had third stringers playing because you went to Alex Highsmith, and then you had to go to Cassius Marsh, who was a revolving door basically in that playoff game as one of your outside linebackers. You had James Pierre out there who's making some noise. Maybe he will be somebody as an undrafted guy. And Justin Lane, because you didn't have Joe Hayden in either of those last two games. They sat. That's the most frustrating thing is, Brian. And also they didn't have Robert Spillane, Bush's backup. They were playing Avery Williamson in the playoff game too. And they didn't have to do much. They were spotted 28 points. It changes the entire script of the game. But I will always maintain that the Browns didn't necessarily embarrass the Steelers so much as the Steelers embarrassed themselves. They shot themselves in the foot. And, you know, if you would have had a monumental collapse in that playoff game, the Browns being, it would have been like the Patriots and Falcons Super Bowl, and nobody would have ever stopped talking about it. The Browns had to beat Mason Rudolph and company in order to get into the postseason. A lot of Steelers fans just forget that. They just see it on paper, and they're like, oh, the Browns beat us twice in a row. And it's like, okay, chill. It's not like I'm not saying the Browns are the Hugh Jackson era Browns winning 1 or 0 games a year either. It's going to be competitive in the league. And it's just, I wanted to clear a little bit of that up. And for the people that are like, well, you're not being realistic, you don't listen to the other shows because, of course, you only saw Browns in the title and thought that this pertained to you. If you come to a Steelers set of programming expecting us to totally trash the Steelers, go elsewhere. This is, you know, we've been accused too much sometimes of too much sunshine and rainbows. So we'll see how many sunshines and rainbows and whatnot we could pull out here. But at the risk of being long-winded, Brian, these were the same folks that were trashing my take, our opinions here, your take as well, maybe not as strongly, about when they got Odell Beckham Jr. And I said, he will not be the same player he was with the Giants. And everybody was hee, ha, ha. And I made some comparisons with Eli Manning. And lo and behold, Baker Mayfield throws 14 interceptions or so, or whatever it may be. It was maybe more than that. It was like in the 20s maybe the previous year. And I know he was hurt last year. But what has the guy done? In the 2 years, he's had 21 interceptions for Baker Mayfield. What has Odell done? I had it up here, and of course the screen refreshes. But okay, he had a 1,000-yard season. Okay, 4 touchdowns, and then he had 3 last year in 7 games. So in 23 games, he scored 7 touchdowns. In 16 games with Eli Manning, he had 9 and just as many yards in his last 2 years with the Giants. So
I'm going to tell you the same thing I told you
right,
before.
But the point was, everybody said that was such a bad take, and we caught so much grief for it. And we're saying the same things now. We could be wrong, although we'll never admit it. But
this is a guy whose legacy is built on one freaking catch.
Yep, you're absolutely
right.
That's
it. I said it. That's why my take was what my take was. His legacy is built on one single, one-handed catch that made everybody go, holy crap, what an amazing catch. And that's it. He's overrated. He's the Aaron Rodgers of wide receivers.
Oh, jeez. I'm so, I'm always so lost on Aaron Rodgers because he puts up some yards. He doesn't turn the ball over. That's pretty much his legacy there. I think the rest of it, I think there's some hype too.
He doesn't win.
He
doesn't win the big game.
And, he's been in the last few NFC championship games. You talk about consistency among teams. The Browns have lacked consistency. They, one playoff appearance and win one year does not make a franchise. For everyone to say they're neck and neck with the Chiefs, that's what I'm laughing about. Three straight AFC title games for the Kansas City Chiefs now. That's not neck and neck. You got to get out of the divisional round. So just cool it. You know what I mean? Like, you talk about realistic expectations. It's like, I understand the Steelers haven't been to wherever they need to be for a minute too. And let's talk about that, because we'll jump up and down the roster. You know what? I'll give you the first crack at it. Any player on the roster, who's the guy who has to have a big year this year? Who do the Steelers really need to depend on? That it's almost too easy now. I almost think I've fed you an answer. I know who my guy is. Who would be your guy?
I have a lot of guys. I'm going to tell you that. I have a lot of guys that I think need to have a step up kind of year in order for this team to accomplish what they did. But if I have to pick one guy, right? One guy who needs to, well, wait, give me the parameters of this question again, because I'm old and I don't know if I'm understanding your question.
I mean, the parameters pretty much are which Steelers would have to stand out this year. Who's most critical? I think we should disqualify Ben from this whole conversation.
Ben isn't even on my list. I'll tell you that right now.
He wasn't on my radar either, but the way I was framing it, I thought maybe that's where you were thinking.
No. What Ben has to do is not lose games for them. That's it. He doesn't have to. He does not have to outperform. He doesn't have to throw for 5,000 yards and 50 million touchdowns. He just has to not screw up. End of that story, right? I would say, man, this is actually much harder for me to select the individual.
We're going to go through more than one. I just wanted one right off the top of your list.
I'm Alex Highsmith.
That's a good one.
That's one of my guys.
Why?
Why? Because he has. Look, here's the thing. Did he get a sack last year? Yes. Did he get an interception last year? Yes. Did he get close a whole lot of times and have a lot of pressures? Yes. Can he do that again? No. He has to replace, to a certain extent, Bud Dupree, and that's not what he did consistently last year. But I don't expect him to have done that last year because he was a rookie. He was thrown in late season. And I thought he did great for what we asked him to do. But he has to be the complement to T.J. Watt. Otherwise, you only have to focus on T.J. Watt, and you don't have to focus on the other side of the line. He has to be a legitimate threat on that side of the ball. Do I think he can be? Absolutely. Do I expect him to be better? Absolutely. I expect him to be better than Bud Dupree was in year 2 of Bud Dupree's career. Because Bud took a long time to develop, and we all knew he was going to take a long time to develop. And I think Alex Highsmith is ahead of that curve already. Doesn't mean I think he's better than Bud Dupree is right now, but I think he has the potential to do so. So from the standpoint of defense, Alex Highsmith, in my mind, is a critical component that has to complement T.J. Watt, has to provide that legitimacy on the other side of the ball, has to be able to give pressure on the weak side, on the blind side, for those quarterbacks in order for the defense to stay at the level they've been.
Yeah, I mean that's a pretty good pick there, Brian. As my camera for some reason was doing a little get-a-lean there.
Made me dizzy.
No, it was starting to come forward at me. I'm like, whoa, back off, bro! Don't come at me like that. I made this comparison earlier, and I keep going back to it, but since I tweeted it in early May, I have to come back to it now. You have everyone blowing smoke up Jadeveon Clowney's rear end. And one of the reasons I say the Browns defense is suspect, they got rid of 2 interior defensive linemen with Sheldon Richardson and Larry Ogunjobi. The Steelers in certain spots are replacing certain players. This is the reason why you're picking Highsmith with Bud Dupree. But I think Highsmith, and I'm bringing up the Browns and I'm bringing up Clowney because of this, because everyone's got Clowney up here, and then you got like these guys on TV and media and stuff that are talking, and they're like, the Steelers need to draft an edge rusher, and just totally disregard what Highsmith did last year. He had a better season than Clowney. You can't tell me that the Titans weren't at least at least as good of a team as the Cleveland Browns.
Who backed up Who backed up Alex Highsmith?
What do you
Ola?
mean? What, Cassius Marsh ended up in
There
there
you go.
for whatever reason.
I would venture to say Cassius Marsh could have had a better season last year than Jadeveon Clowney.
I'm not a big fan, and it didn't sound like
I don't like Cassius Marsh. I'm not.
Yeah.
I don't hate Cassius Marsh, but Cassius Marsh is not the answer, and he cannot be the answer. But Jadeveon Clowney, a lot of guys, backups had better seasons than Jadeveon Clowney last year.
you and I had as many sacks last year.
Yeah, exactly. There you go. Not even combined, individually, we each had as many sacks as Jadeveon Clowney had last year, and we didn't even play. So
I know. Well,
so there you go.
People
just have they love that freakish athlete, and we actually, I don't know if you remember, back when Clowney was being picked, touted, oh, everybody's going to take Clowney, la, 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 he's going to be the greatest thing in sliced bread. He had an injury history, and he was coming off an injury, and we said, unless he can stay healthy, it doesn't matter. Guess what he has shown in the pros? Can't stay on the field.
I won't fault the Texans, though. If you're in that spot and you didn't need a quarterback.
Got to take him. You got to take him.
How are you not going to take him, too?
I don't blame the Texans. I'm just saying. This is why no number one pick or no number two pick or no pick, period, is ever a guarantee, because you're always taking some level of chance.
No, that's absolutely that's correct. We talk about that so many times. Clowney had 8 starts last year. He appeared in 8 games before going on injured reserve. Highsmith appeared in all of them, but he only had 5 starts. So in 3 of these games, I took the last 8 games of Alex Highsmith's regular season compared to the only 8 games that Clowney ended up playing. And what you find out is that Highsmith had more tackles, 33 to 19. He had 1 fewer tackle for loss, 3 to 4. He had 2 sacks to Clowney's 0. He had 5 quarterback hits to Clowney's 6. A lot of people are going to say, well, Myles Garrett's going to be there, and they can't double team Clowney. Well, what do you think the Steelers got with TJ Watt? You know what I mean? It's the same. It might be the same kind of dynamic. I can't wait to see how this ends up playing out. The biggest difference is I did that by games. Dupree went on IR after, the third game in this tally, and he played 137 snaps to Highsmith's 44 in those 3 games combined, 137 to 44. So Highsmith had 343 snaps to Clowney's 426. You're talking about 80-ish more snaps that Clowney had, and all the more he could manage was an extra tackle for loss and an extra quarterback hit. And everybody wants to say, well, he's tremendous in the run game and run stopping, but you also got rid of the interior defensive lineman there. The Steelers don't have this problem with the defensive line whatsoever. I'm not looking for Alex Highsmith to be shot out of a cannon and not necessarily why he's my guy. I could see why he's one of the guys, but not the guy on my list. Dupree was just kind of a slow starter here. I mean, yeah, he had the big year. Last year was a pretty big year. The year before is what got him the franchise tag and really got paid. 11.5 sacks, 8 sacks in 11 games. Really started turning it on. Wish the Steelers could have kept him. The tackles for loss type things, the quarterback hits over the years. I look at 2017, 2018, and if you could still get like about 6 sacks a season average out of Alex Highsmith, and you can get, I don't know, maybe there's 7 and 13 quarterback hits, then there's 12 and 8 for tackles for loss. So Bud Dupree kind of flipped it both ways, but if you're going to split 20 either way over that production with Highsmith, I think they're going to be okay. And here's the main reason why is because of Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt. A lot of people have forgotten that Tuitt had 11 sacks last year, was second on the team. Now, I know Cam only had 4, and then somehow this team still had 80 players record a sack. They've led the league in sacks for 4 straight seasons. Highsmith's still there. He can't suck. He has to be healthy. No doubt about it. But provided he's on the field, I feel comfortable with him. My guy, I feel comfortable with. I've been blowing up a lot here during the offseason. He was the guy I said the Steelers had to sign. He was my must-sign guy, and that's Cam Sutton. That
was my second guy.
Yeah, he can't suck because then it would make me look like a fool. But regardless of that, My expectation for him is to be at least as good as Steven Nelson, and flashes and what do you want to say? Short periods of time. I'm trying to think of the right word here. We haven't gotten to see a lot of him in the role that he may be in now. He may still not be outside corner. They were talking to him. Kevin Colbert, obviously not Kevin Colbert, but Keith Butler, I should say, I believe was the one they were talking to in the presser just the other day during the minicamp stuff. He did say something about Cassius Marsh, and they're still looking for other edge help. They did say something about that. But we've been hearing a lot about James Pierre. We've also heard from Cam Sutton that they may ask him to play slot, move into slot on certain passing downs, and then bring somebody else like Justin Lane or James Pierre in, which we did see at the end of the season last year when Joe Hayden or Steven Nelson or somebody wasn't available. We've seen Cam Sutton kind of float back and play a safety type role. So you got a bunch of things going on there. Also, he was talking about, I believe this was Keith Butler's as well, but they were talking about how he likes to have that Mike Hilton style player cover, running backs and tight ends. It's not like it's a huge shocker there. Steelers are usually playing with two down linemen. Tyson Alualu being the third, kind of a traditional nose tackle, rotates to the outside to give Tuitt or Hayward a breather here or there. And they add an extra DB on the field. So that DB has to be, talented and wear many hats. That's where I see Sutton at. I see Sutton as a guy that could be a big splash play type player. We saw that start to really come out last year. That was the thing we were looking at years ago, over 4 years ago when he was first drafted. Look what this guy could do. Look what he did in college. And, he hits like a Mack truck and this and that and the other thing. But if he fails, old Mother Hubbard's cupboards are really bare, or as bare as what you're saying with the outside linebackers. So, I mean, it's, they're both valid points and they're both on the defense. My thing is that we've at least seen Highsmith. We have seen Sutton too. You're not seeing guys that are just coming fresh off the street or guys that may have had, they're either rookies or in the case of when I'm ragging on the Browns, maybe a guy like Grant Delpit who didn't really play last year. Yeah, first round pick, but the guy missed, his rookie season basically. And you're immediately counting on, I think, more players on Cleveland's defense stepping up, gelling, forming all these many more new parts than the Steelers because they already had Highsmith as a starter. They're going to get Devin Bush back. They've had Sutton play in those various roles too. The only question mark really is like, which of the cornerback spots is Sutton going to play? Is he going to do both? And how might this rotation work? The biggest missing piece is Mike Hilton. And still, Mike Hilton was an undrafted free agent. They found to happen to ascend into this role. So it's like, it's not the impossible, I think. I don't think it's as much of a tall order for a team that's already a top defense. The Browns were a much lower level defense that's got to rise up some more. And, they talk about some of the people in the comments were talking about, well, they gave up this many points because of this, that, or the other thing, but it's still, you know what I mean? The Steelers are probably in more games because of their defense, even if Ben isn't the guy. That's why I excluded Ben from this, because I think if you could probably plug and play Mason Rudolph or Dwayne Haskins, either one of them. And I don't like putting Dwayne Haskins immediately into that pedestal. But I still think if they're game managers who aren't making mistakes, much the same way we said Ben can't throw a bunch of picks or anything like that, most of the bad losses you see is because Ben making bad judgment. You don't see Brady make the same type of bad judgment. But then again, when you do, Aaron Rodgers wasn't able to beat him. They get a nice little pass interference call, and everybody forgets that Brady threw 3 picks in that NFC title game too. So they have bad games too. It just so happened that the rest of it picked up the slack for him, and they didn't end up in this giant, tremendous hole they had to dig themselves out of. But anyways, I jumped the quarterbacks. Cam Sutton is my guy, just to validate the contract and being probably the big free agent piece the Steelers added.
I can't really argue with it because that's the guy that I was vacillating between him and Highsmith. I think it's very critical that Cam Sutton step up. It's critical that, as you said, he perform at least to the level that Steven Nelson did. Because if he doesn't, there isn't really, there's not a known quantity behind him. Let's put it that way. They're guys that they clearly have some kind of level of confidence in, but they're not known, right? Now you're just basing out, we think they can do this. And you're absolutely right. Cam Sutton has played well. He has shown the flashes of being able to do that. He's shown in many ways more versatility than Mike Hilton had because he was able to play outside, where Hilton just flat out could not play outside. He was an inside guy, period. So you're dead on. It's I can't. How am I supposed to argue with it? It was my other guy.
No, and it's more than fair, and I think it's funny that we're not worried about the defense, but yet we say there's the two pieces on defense that have to be there. But then again, and not everybody's going to be a Pro Bowl, All-Pro player
right
on this defense.
Nor do they need to be.
Yeah, and we're just looking at them to maintain the level, but if they're already this top-level defense, they start to slide a little bit like this. We got to pick some guys on the offensive side of the ball, too. And I think that where the Steelers were really hurting, the guy that can't flop on offense, obviously, has got to be Najee Harris because they were looking at running back, right? But how can you get worse? How can you get worse than 32nd than last place?
That's not right, man. That's just not right.
You can't be 33rd.
It's not right. You're right. Can't be worse than 32nd.
Yeah. So it's got to get better. So I'm not necessarily going to put too much. I don't want to put too much pressure on him. And we're hearing about Anthony McFarland maybe getting plugged in and things like that. I mean, Najee would have to be. It was funny. I was looking at the former first round picks. I was looking at somewhere someone was talking about like worst Steelers loss in history, and it was a game I wouldn't have picked. It happened to just coincide with a former not number one overall. He was like number 7th overall, but first round draft pick that was a running back, and that was Tim Worley. If you want to go way back, what was that, like 89, I think? It was 89. And there may be one more guy in the early 90s, too, that didn't quite live up to snuff. I have to pull these up now because my brain turns into mush sometimes. Let me see. But anyways, I don't have as many concerns with Najee Harris either. So I don't necessarily want to put him on the same level there as a guy who has to absolutely, these guys have to step up, have a great season. It's kind of, I'm in the same category as Ben Roethlisberger. If they have like an average season, I don't think it's going to necessarily hurt the Steelers because I think Najee Harris's average season is still going to be better than what James Conner was providing. I think Matt Canada having an average season as an offensive coordinator is going to be better than the mess that was Randy Fichtner as an offensive coordinator, which I think is a huge piece to it. And I think if you don't ask Ben Roethlisberger to throw it 600 times in a season, that's going to be a lot different too. But who else can we pick on offense, man? I mean, I think there's a few keys here. Maybe what about the wide receivers? I think Deante Johnson. I think these guys like kind of shot Ben in the foot too. If you hold on to the football, he's working with what, like tennis balls now? He's catching tennis balls. It's his concentration, his focus thing that he was saying. I think that's another guy I would look at for sure is Deante Johnson because I think he could jump from good to great if he holds on to the football. He's a very shifty guy. He's hard to tackle. I don't want to call him Antonio Brown-esque, but he can carve out his own niche here for sure.
Yeah, I think Deante needs to step up. I mean, the wide receiver group as a whole needs to be more consistent than they were last year. I mean, you could tell me if I'm wrong, but I think
you're not.
They led the league in drop passes.
They did. I don't have the exact number, but they did, and that includes Eric Ebron in the conversation as well. Absolutely,
the entire receiving crew, I think, needs to step up to a certain extent. I think, Juju needs to play well. I think Chase Claypool needs to continue improving. I can't really fault the rookie season that he had, but he needs to improve on it. Deante absolutely needs to, go back in time and make Stickum legal again so that he doesn't drop the ball. You just need to be able to do that, have it stick to your hand, right? They absolutely do. I agree with that. I also agree with your statement about Najee, and I'm going to include him in the receiving group as well. He needs to be a willing and able participant in that area, and be productive in catching the ball. But for me, all of those things are true. But if I'm looking at the offensive side of the ball, The place where I'm looking is up front. Those hogs.
Yeah, I knew
those big boys.
I knew you were going to get there. But does Najee have to be Le'Veon Bell and be wide receiver too? No, absolutely not.
No,
I don't think
absolutely not. You got way more than Antonio Brown on this team, right?
Yeah.
It's not like, okay, we had Antonio Brown and a bunch of guys who we can't remember anymore. It's a different group. There are a lot of quality receivers in the receiving room. So Najee does not have to be receiver number 2. He just has to be a part of the mix. But none of that, the running game piece, the receiving game piece, none of that matters if the offensive line does not play better. As a unit, and I'm going to lump them together because it's really hard to say because Kendrick Green or whoever is the center to start the season has to play better. It's not just that position. Pouncey didn't play bad last year, okay? I'm not saying that at all. But the position, the group as a whole must perform better than they did last season. The offensive line, do they have to be the top offensive line in the league? No. Do they have to be all pros? No. They just can't stink. All right? I mean, they have to play better.
And, I understand that's where the main sticking point is, I think, among everyone who takes a look at the AFC North. They look at the Browns and they say, well, they have the best offensive, or maybe one of the better offensive lines in all of football. Probably do we have to say probably the best in the AFC North? I'll give them credit for that right now. They got some free agents. They drafted some guys. They got that working. The Cincinnati Bengals, not so much. I think the Ravens have just as many concerns as the Steelers do in moving guys from guard to center, conversion projects, replacing retired players, and things of that nature too. So as a unit, though, I don't think people trash the Ravens because they look and they see what they did as an offense and as a unit. So I think it's very fair to say the same thing about the Steelers as a group. This is a bunch of guys where I don't know that you're going to have a whole lot of individual accolades, but together as one unit, they keep Ben upright. They give him some time. They create some holes for Harris. I think they'll be just fine. I'm not I
hope they'll be just fine.
I do have a little bit. I have some blind faith, but if Green isn't the center, I'm confident in BJ Finney. Both of the tackles, I think I'm okay with the tackle situation. I understand Alejandro Villanueva was a beloved player who I think was viewed upon on a higher plane than what he actually played at.
Oh, I've said that all along.
Yeah.
I agree with you 100%.
All the time. You didn't even want to give him the contract before.
Yeah, his story elevated his stature much more so than his play did. In no season was he actually a Pro Bowl level tackle.
Yeah.
Wasn't.
And you have Matt Filer playing on one side, and you did have Okorafor last year on the one side, and you've had Al on the one side, and Banner was penciled in. So I'm okay with it. And if there's a little bit of rough sledding, what I'm not looking at is there going to be 4 bums and David DeCastro.
Right.
Or an old David DeCastro. And I think it's been some of the rankings I've seen have put Kevin Zeitler way up the list and just disrespecting DeCastro. I don't see it. I don't see it. If he is a shell of himself, then there's got to be some type of undisclosed injury that he's trying to get through or play through. I still think that was the case last year. But I agree. As a unit, I'm not overtly concerned. I'm not doom and gloom here because I still think with the dynamic players you have, and we didn't mention Eric Ebron. He's just got to catch the ball. I think he'd be dynamic enough. Pat Freiermuth, now he's getting the love. It's like, let's pick a rookie to talk about in each of these sessions where they have the press conferences. And it's Freiermuth's the next guy. And, James Pierre was the guy they were talking about. We didn't really mention him much at all. But, I don't know what the expectation is if he just becomes another camp phenom type name. Like Mike Hilton actually went from camp phenom to actual phenom. Cam Kelly, not so much. You got guys
exact opposite.
Niall Davis, if we remember that one too. It was just
he went from week 1 camp phenom to where the hell did that guy go?
Yeah, maybe. It was rough.
Oh, look, he had a great run. What happened to Niles Davis? Where's he at? I don't remember. I remember that run he had.
We were sitting there together at camp, and we were like, "And what's everybody else see that we're missing here?" And you know what I mean? Yeah. I mean, there was a lot of other exciting things. It's exciting to see like Devin Bush taking some, backs on backers, some rookie reps and things when you get to finally see those guys. Chase Claypool is another one we throw up here. Let's throw a dart his direction. I don't expect him to regress. I think a lot of people are going to have a higher expectation than what may actually come out of what he does. And I think people have cooled on Juju. I don't even know that any of these receivers, somebody's probably going to get a 1,000-yard season because they're playing a whole entire extra game. That's going to help. It makes you wonder if the century mark is now a benchmark that should even be counted at all for running backs and receivers. To be completely honest, there's going to be some records broken just by virtue of playing 17 games now. So there's a lot of things that are different. I think Chase Claypool, just as long as he doesn't regress, let's say he just starts getting butterfingers or he catches like a lone touchdown the whole year, nagging injuries, the guy's on the field, I think he's going to put up some numbers, and I think it's just going to, again, you can only cover so many players that are on the field. I think the Steelers still have one of the top wide receiver cores. I know Cleveland fans are going to be like, yeah, okay, you still got it. Jarvis Landry is a phenomenal player. I hate saying this because he's a Cleveland Browns player, but I love watching Jarvis Landry play. There was the game against the Steelers where I said, oh, no, he caught that. And they challenged it. I'm like, that ball don't get within a certain radius of that guy and it not end up in his hands. He's been phenomenal when it comes to that.
He's a very I won't use the word phenomenal because I think he's very, very good, but he's not game-changing or game-breaking in that sense. I think he's a really good receiver, right? But that's about as far as I'll
missing some
go.
kind of element Antonio Brown had for the big play. But if you're going to go to him on third and whatever,
he'll catch the ball. Absolutely,
he's going to
catch the ball,
and he's where he needs to be and everything like that. So I agree. There's something that's always been missing in my head to say he's put up numbers and stuff to say that he's among like some of the league greats. You know what I mean?
Right.
Everybody gives that to Beckham, and I'm like, he's not the best wide receiver on the roster.
I agree with that statement that you just made. I don't think Odell Beckham Jr. is the best wide receiver on their roster. It probably is Jarvis Landry in my mind. But
Beckham's not even top 5 in the AFC North. They might struggle to put him in the top 10. You look at all the guys the Bengals have.
Oh yeah.
Well, the Ravens kind of bring the curve down though.
Yeah, they hurt. Can you name a top 10 receiver on the Ravens? A Hollywood, maybe. That's it. I don't know. The tight ends.
Mark Andrews. Yeah, it has to be. Now, Mark Andrews.
Tight ends.
He's a beast, but the tight ends. So that's what you need. Freiermuth maybe to do a little bit of that dirty work there. Ebron, hold on to the ball. Offensive line. Let's go over to the defense again. We did the linebackers. For the most part, Devin Bush has to come back and be the guy that he was. He's coming off of an injury. Vince Williams, I don't know what they expect from Vince Williams or Robert Spillane or any of the other inside linebackers. Probably no more than what they already did. The thing with Vince, I wonder they cut him and then they brought him back. Like it was like, I don't know. It didn't really make sense because there was still a cap hit to it too. Like I don't know. It was like, did they want to get rid of him? Did they really do it just to save salary? Like what's like the whole story there? You know what I mean? And it hurts. It still hurts. I think that they had to dump Steven Nelson for similar reasons. Yeah. But I'm not concerned about defensive line. I think the linebackers are just fine. It's all there in the secondary. Terrell Edmonds, just keep it going, buddy. He just as long as he continues, if he has the same year he did last year, for those who paid attention and realized that he has gotten a lot better and the passer ratings going his way, you see Tyrann Mathieu, and he's talking about the PFF Wizards again and how everyone has Justin Simmons from the Broncos up there high on their rankings. And you put Terrell Edmonds into that category, and you start looking at his numbers. Aside from the Honey Badger is he's a special player. He does a lot of different things just like Minkah does. Those two guys, they're in a special category. I don't think Edmonds is a special category, but he's not asked nor tasked to be the special category.
No, it doesn't need to be.
No, it's go out there and tackle like Ryan Clark.
He's the Ryan Clark, exactly.
No, you don't have to sack. Yeah. You don't have to turn the ball over. And you're not going to see too many.
It would be nice if he could catch a couple.
He has like
I know,
3.
but
he had 2 in
more.
one game against
That,
the Jaguars.
It would be nice if he got a couple more, but doesn't have to. You're right.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess that's it on the defense. How about special teams?
The big fat punter needs to be good. that's
Poor Presley Harvin, man.
The big fat punter needs to be good. I love him. I don't want him to lose weight. I don't want him to get in better shape. I want him to be a big fat punter, and I want him to be. I told you, my season will be made when he knocks the crap out of somebody.
I'm going to tell you, if you had to put like a list of 5 guys together, we'll include Ben in there. I probably put Ben in there, obviously, with Highsmith and Sutton. Okay, maybe one of the receivers. You can pick one, maybe Deante. I'll throw the punter in. That might be my 5th guy because the punting woes, man, I thought they had it solved with Jordan Berry, and then he started being inconsistent, and then Cole quit. This has been a decade-long thing.
They have had problems with punting since before they drafted Daniel Sepulveda, and it's been a very long time. So I hope Big Fat Punter solves the problem.
When you're talking about expectations of players, I don't have the highest expectation in the world of Highsmith. If he just does okay, it's because the rest of the guys are feasting. You know what I mean? I just think there's enough with that whole defensive unit that he doesn't have to stand out and be a double-digit sack guy. Hopefully nobody gives him like the Bud Dupree stamp. I think because he was a 3rd rounder, you're not going to see the same type of venom with the criticism as you would with the former 1st-round pick spent on Bud Dupree versus like with the expectations. But with Najee Harris, everyone's expectations are going to be up here. Claypool expectations, I think, are going to be up here. I don't know if anybody has expectations for Sutton, the casual fan that is. Me and you obviously do. The punter, for me, and I think a lot of people have expectation for him already. We were already thinking he's won this job and he's going to be the starter, so now he has to be good. It's crazy to talk about,
he has to win the job and be the starter. He has to do that much in order to at least live up to the first level of expectations. And then he simply can't be bad, right? He can be okay. I don't think he has to be great, but he can't be bad. He can't kick the shank at the exact inopportune time. If he is just consistently hitting punts in the 40 to 45, yard range, everybody's going to be fine. If you just don't have to talk about him, it's perfect, right? That's what it's like every other position on special teams. If you don't have to mention them, they're doing well.
That's the corners, like a lot of your secondary. If you're not talking about them, that's true too. That's your offensive linemen. You're not talking about them. We didn't talk about a core 4 a whole lot last year.
We didn't.
I don't get where some of the
I don't think
apprehension is for him.
Well, he didn't play on. Is he going to play left?
He's been working out as a left tackle, yeah.
Yeah,
and they just talked to Adrian Clem, the new offensive line coach, and he has spoken about. He said he feels that a core 4 is playing more naturally on the left than he would on the right.
And that's the apprehension. Is now you got a guy who, when he was next to DeCastro, you don't know how much help he got. I didn't see it. I thought he did a good job, a solid job playing on the right. The right is different. Ben can see what's coming on the right. The blind side always makes people nervous until there's some consistency there, right? You see, if Ben's not getting clocked from behind a whole bunch, all of a sudden nobody will worry about a core.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Let's toss one more guy's name out there. We're going to do this for a whole show on the rookies and on what we think their expectations are. But I think Kendrick Green's expectation level is pretty high right now, too, because you're asking him. Most people are expecting him to jump in to Marquise Pouncey's role and maintain that level from day one. And I know me and you would say, well, if he doesn't do that, that's okay. It may be some growing pains, but just the general consensus, the onlooker is probably thinking, this is the guy that was replaced or drafted to replace Pouncey. So this is what we expect him to be. Just
there's a vast difference between a 3rd round center being picked and a 1st round consensus top of the guy in the draft in Marquise Pouncey. All right. So do I have high expectations for Kendrick Green? Eventually, yes. Do I expect him to be Marquise Pouncey year one? No. And if you have that expectation, then you need to roll it back, because while he may end up being that good, he may even be better than any of us anticipate right away. But you cannot put that on a third-round pick and say, I'm going to give him the same expectation level I would a first-round pick. It's not realistic, right? There's going to potentially be some growth. He has to adjust to NFL play. He has to adjust to the differences in things. But he can be a special player. Doesn't mean he will be, but he can be. He has attributes that are Pouncey-esque, right? He actually has attributes that are better than Pouncey-esque, right? He can do some things that are scary. It's the question, can he translate it, bring the speed with it, bring it to the professional level? We'll see.
Yeah, and you know what? You had me thinking of one of the things I read. I'm going to end up, I think, doing a whole show on that and reviewing a certain preseason magazine I get each year. It's always fun to read those things with the Steelers. I know myself and the professor are going to go through the Ravens schedule and do the same thing and tick off all their fans also. The only other guy I would say when I said Steelers, we've been going players, but as far as anyone that we need to have maybe a higher expectation of, or that we do have a higher expectation of, or that needs to have step up and have a good season here, I'm going to go with the offensive coordinator now, Matt Canada. You're stepping into a role where everybody has hated the previous guy. I think,
and the previous guy,
guy. How far back do we got to go? We got to go 3 because people wanted Arians gone. And they want it, and people forget that. That's the thing that blows my mind is that they forget.
Because he was just the Super Bowl, just won a Super Bowl. Oh, Bruce Arians, why did we let him go? He was the greatest. We should have kept him. You hated him when he was here. You hated him.
Because Ben took more sacks when Arians was OC than he has since, like 9 seasons, one abbreviated, versus a 5-year window there. He says he still took more, like 5 to 10 more sacks.
This is an expectation you and I have to learn to get rid of. Fan and logic. We have to get rid of that expectation that fans will have logic, because they won't.
Our audience, for the most part, has logic, provided they are Steelers fans. So some of our audience that isn't. Some of our audience that is. There's some that are. Some come along. Okay,
come on, wait a minute. There's a guy. I'm not going to mention names because I'm not calling out anybody on the podcast here. But there's a guy who has been a Steelers fan for X number of years that does not use logic very often. You know who it is, and I'm not saying his name.
And he's a 2%er too, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, he might be a 2%er. And we love you. We love you, Mr.
The 2%er you still hanging on here. Yeah. I think we're going to put a bow on this. But yeah, Matt Canada.
I'd go with that.
He can't become the next hated scapegoat.
Here's what has to happen. There has to be creativity in this offense. If the fans think they can predict every play, which you could last year, if you were in a room of Steelers fans, right? Not that we could have been last year, but if you were, if you were in a room of Steelers fans and you had 70% of them knew what the damn play was going to be next, that's not going to make them happy, because they all know it's going to not work, or they're going to complain about it, right? He needs to show the creativity that they brought him here to be. If he does that and it works, the people will be happy. If he does that and they suck, they'll all want him gone.
Randy Fichtner was I will say, not a very
stable genius.
I was going to say, like, Todd Haley tended to outsmart himself. I think Randy Fichtner tended to not outsmart anybody. But the last time I saw Randy Fichtner be creative was about like week 5 of 2019 when Jalen Samuels was in the Wildcat.
I was going to say kindergarten.
Jeez. Rotten, man.
Randy, that's a very creative son you have drawn there, my young friend.
People are ragging on him as far as, oh, look, he doesn't have a job anywhere at any level. Like, okay, we just got through with there's a lot of COVID protocol type stuff still and things of that. And, oh, geez, I don't even want to get into that. The memos that came out yesterday, some of that is just absolutely wild league.
If you're Randy Fichtner, do you even want to be an OC anymore?
Maybe not an OC, but he'll coach at some
quarterback
level.
Coach. He'll coach at some level, and he wasn't necessarily a bad, quarterbacks coach. It's just, you as they often say, people rise to the level of their ineptitude, right? You keep going up the ladder until you can't do the job. Well, there you go. OC, too much for our boy Randy.
And who's to say he doesn't go with another team and has some success? And then everybody will be like, why did they get rid of him? And they'll forget about how the dark days. It's always the grass is always greener on the other side. But no, that was my point, was like, he'll get a job somewhere. He just wasn't so terribly awful that he doesn't know other people or hasn't coached around the league and this, that, and the other thing, where maybe not even the NFL, maybe he gets a college gig somewhere. You know what I mean?
And maybe he doesn't
so
want
unfair.
to. You never know. Maybe
possible.
He's got enough money and he just is like, you know what? I want to go live my life, and I don't want to deal with you crazy people anymore. I'm tired of people telling me I suck.
Yeah, and the unfortunate thing was last year we had him on the hot seat, and Steelers don't like to make those moves mid-season. It still makes you wonder. They still got to 11-0 with this guy as their offensive coordinator. So let's see what they could do with Matt Canada. And everybody's going to say, well, they played a bunch of bum teams, a bad quarterback. Yeah, you can have the same things happen. You could have somebody get hurt in week 1 or week 2 that's one of these high profile. I get sick of seeing, well, these many teams made the playoffs, so this makes the schedule. You had more teams in the playoffs last year. Incidentally, 3 of them in the same division. That's already going to make your percentage when it comes to strength of schedule more difficult than most of the teams in the league, because 2 of your games now, it gets the Browns and Ravens. There's 4 games.
That's 4 games against playoff teams. Yeah.
I was going to say 2 each against a division opponent that made the playoffs. 4 games. I mean, it's not rocket science. And you look, the Bears, like they slumped in too, and they're on the schedule too. So just, I don't know. I try not to. I'm thinking too much here. I'm putting too much into this. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Brian, thanks for joining me once again, my friend. Nice spirited conversation we had here.
Absolutely. Happy to be able to get back on the show. I feel I miss all you. I miss you, my brother. I miss all my wonderful peoples who tell me that I don't know what the frick I'm talking about and make fun of my hair.
Yeah, it's. I don't know what's going on. I got a little tough. I can't talk. I'm in the.
You know what's going on? It's getting really long now. The mohawk is getting long, and so it curls. And I have. There you go. I have some naturally curly hair, and so it's long and it curls up. It needs. I got to put. I don't like the hair products. I don't like to deal with the hair products. I don't actually like to style anything. So I need to. But I need. If I want it to stand up, I got to put gel crap in there, and I just don't feel like doing it.
I was just saying, I'm the LL Cool J of the podcast world. I'm always going to have a hat on. That's just. You've seen me oftentimes without a hat, but when I'm on here, you don't get to see my ball. That's because the lights I got here.
You can say that. You can say that. I can't say that.
Don't you ever say that. Don't you ever say that to me. So, all right, folks, that's going to do it for us here. We forgot to mention the Chase Claypool camp.
How can we forget that?
I don't know. We should have mentioned it. Well, we had the high expectations for Chase Claypool. The Chase Claypool camp at chaseclaypoolcamp.com. Once again, that's going on July 21st. I do believe that's going to be probably the day or day before they report for training camp. That's so if you're coming out already, we'll find out. Well, I still don't know where it's going to be held, if it's going to be St. Vincent's again. The NFL's given clearance for fans for things like that. But if you've got a boy or a girl, grades 1 to 8, you're interested in having them come to one of these pro camps, 9 a.m. to July 21st. It's a one-day camp. Chase Claypool and the coaches will offer tips and hands-on instruction, and you can get a 10% discount if you use the promo code Steel City. So I feel bad. I'll mention this again at the beginning of the next show for the now half percenters that are still hanging on with the small promotional piece here. Don't forget to check out ChaseClaypoolCamp.com. That'll do it for us. We have the high expectations for him. I have high expectations for the camp. So go check that out. My name's Joe. His name's Brian. And until next time, we encourage everyone out there to be safe, be good, and we'll catch you later.
We would like to thank you for listening and remind our listeners to follow us on social media and our website, www.steelcityunderground.com.